For the longest time, I was innocent with my perspective of gaming journalists when I'd look at them and say, hey, they can't all be this bad. And then every time I start diving into one of them, I'm just like, ugh, it's like the same thing over and over and over. It feels like every single one of them is an activist. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Smash JT. One of the examples that I was thinking of for a while that I would just let slide was Khee Hoon Chan, the activist slash translator for the infamous slander piece against Game Science's Black Myth Wukong coming out of IGN, co-authored with Rebekah Valentine, someone who I've covered in a couple videos so far. But Khee Hoon Chan is just as bad, if not worse. Hit that subscribe, give me a like, and check out SmashJT.com for the full article talking about how Khee Hoon Chan didn't just have a mask slip moment. This was like a mask fully ripped off on Twitter behind protected mode with tweets that were shared with me from Old Man Grimm, and how this exposes just how deranged these people really are. In the saga that has captivated quite a bit of the gaming community lately, Khee Hoon Chan has emerged as the harbinger of fake news. As the co-author alongside with Rebekah Valentine on the notoriously now infamous hit piece Black Myth Wukong and the developer Game Science, Khee Hoon Chan attempted to destroy the game's reputation before its release. But no, the tables have turned dramatically, with Black Myth Wukong just recently announcing that they have sold over 10 million copies in less than, 3 days since launch? That is like almost unheard of. I think Grand Theft Auto might have surpassed it with 11 million in that amount of time, but this is up there with some of the top-selling, fastest-selling games in the history of gaming. How did Khee Hoon Chan respond to all of this success? Well, about as unhinged as you could expect it to be. Before I dive too far into the tweets from Khee Hoon Chan, there's an article that is extremely relevant for finding out more information as far as the background and perspective of this individual and why they are so jaded when it comes to gaming journalism. In an article titled How to Get Into Games Journalism from Khee Hoon Chan on the Medium from October 14th, 2020, she goes into talking about why she got into games journalism and how she actually didn't want to be a journalist. And I find this interesting because when I dove into the background of Rebekah Valentine, I found information from her in an article a few years back too, saying something very similar, that they didn't want to get into journalism. They just kind of fell into it because they like video games and they could write, so I guess I'll be a games journalist. Oh, by the way, I'm also an activist, so sure, I can push a propaganda message with it too. Personally, I didn't start out wanting to be a journalist or even a writer. The only thing I ever wanted to be since young was to be a musician. And she goes on saying, I've been inspired by a local journalist, activist, writing extraordinaire. Was inspired by an activist, okay? Straight up. If you are inspired by an activist, you are an activist as well. But here's where it gets really crazy. The shitty thing about journalism, especially games journalism, it'll be remiss of me to acknowledge that having any success in journalism will boil down to issues around class, race, and privilege. And then she dives further into how white people get jobs over everyone else in the games industry, which is literally anything but the truth from what I've seen, but it doesn't stop people from pushing a narrative about agenda bias and gender and race and how this is all somehow a part of the games journalism industry when we're not even talking about the games anymore. But don't let the truth get in the way of a good narrative. Anyways, on Twitter, Khee Hoon Chan completely lost her mind. At least I think it's a her. I'm so effing pissed off. This has gone too far. Don't play Black Myth Wukong. If you must, go and pirate it. If you enjoy it, I do not want to know it. F Game Science and all the grifters who are doing this to one of my favorite people in the industry. She tweeted calling for a boycott and wildly even encouraging piracy, a stance that not only brings her ethics into question, but also her understanding of the legal and moral framework of the video game industry. Not that she cares about it, clearly, but it is just insane to me how unhinged someone can be on Twitter. Like, of course, I'm already blocked by her, but she's also behind a protected mode, so only people in her echo chamber should be able to see these things that she's saying, aka she wants pats on the back for being crazy. Oh, and did I mention her title says Khee Hoon says Free Palestine with a Palestinian flag? As if you needed any more reason to wonder if this person was an activist. I'm sorry for anyone who is being harassed because they didn't give 100% on the monkey game. Between being underpaid and harassed, it's clear that somehow reviews are still imped work if they manage to piss off a significant amount of gamers. I haven't seen anyone begging for a 100% score or a perfect rating for Black Myth Wukong. If anything, I am appreciating people who are being critical about the game aspects and taking it down notches because things weren't what they thought. It wasn't up to snuff. It wasn't to their expectations of what they thought it would be, or it was falling short in ways that they expected it to be better, like a game review. But if we get stuff like Screen Rant's Black Myth Wukong review, how it was written by someone who worked at a consultancy company and they're docking it points because there's not enough diversity and equity and inclusion in the game, I have a problem with that. In fact, a lot of people have a problem with that, and that's what people were complaining about. But you can't see it this way because you yourself are an activist and it fits your agenda and your narrative. So you are confused. You're like, why are people mad? It shouldn't be getting good reviews because it's an evil company, because they don't stand for what I stand for. Die Heart War asked, still spreading the mistranslations? Not surprised. Typical for regressive left-wingers. And Khee Hoon replied, I finally saw the mistranslation accusation. Oh, great. Okay, so she heard about the accusations. So she's going to say what Rebekah Valentine should have said. Hey, yeah, there are different ways to translate things, so it makes sense that people have different perspectives, right? Right? I'm open to feedback. I have to say that they are very stupid. Like, okay, it's stupid because it's not what you translated, so ergo, they're stupid. Are you kidding me? Like, this is too ridiculous for even rational thought, which I guess makes sense because you're unhinged. But seriously, IGN is actively employing people like Rebekah Valentine and Khee Hoon Chan for this slander piece. And Twitter gives us some insight as far as what their actual intellect really is. And it's not pretty. And I said this in my video about Rebekah Valentine as well, but if these activists really stood by their words as strongly as they do, don't you think they'd be more upset at their own outlet for representing game science and Black Myth Wukong in a positive light now and giving it an 8 out of 10 score and continually giving it coverage over and over again? If they really felt so strongly that game science was so bad, don't you think that IGN shouldn't be covering it? They're getting mad at people on Twitter and gamers that are excited instead of being upset at their own company. Grums on Twitter said, after that mishandled translation debacle on Black Myth Wukong hit piece, IGN needs to issue a retraction and apology along with the authors who smeared them. The authors Rebekah Valentine and Khee Hoon Chan have gone protected but should instead apologize. They added words and completely mistranslated, which is fair. Like, we had the Chinese actual Mandarin YouTuber go through it and say, yeah, it wasn't like the prettiest thing to say, and they don't necessarily stand by it as far as something they would back, but it's not something to try to smear and cancel a company over, which is a gigantic distinction. And thanks again to Old Man Grimm for providing these screenshots because, like I said, I'm blocked and she's in a protected mode so I can see them anyways. It shed light on a deeper issue within games journalism, where personal biases are overshadowing the factual reporting, and any journalistic integrity, which when you put those words together in the game industry sounds more like an oxymoron these days. Chan's narrative has been completely debunked, not just by the actual Chinese YouTuber fluent in native Mandarin, but also the undeniable success of Black Myth Wukong, a game that continues to receive universal acclaim from the gamers actually playing the game, breaking the concurrent players record and approaching the fastest selling game ever. As Chan continues to barricade herself behind a wall of denial, the gaming community is moving forward, taking note, while also celebrating these groundbreaking achievements by game science. And every day, every moment that goes by is making these journos look even worse, if that's even possible. Like, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel for how garbage these human beings really are. At the end of the day, the quality of the game speaks far louder than any of the actions behind the scene of a company. I'm not somebody that's like, oh, it doesn't matter what they did, we're going to buy the game because it's fun. No, if the game company is like horrifically doing things that I definitely do not agree with and that I wouldn't want to be a part of, I personally would be like, you know what? I'm going to sit this one out. I don't want to support that game. But doing the research, diving further into this, game science did nothing seriously wrong. Like, sure, it's some locker room chatter, some banter, but these feminist activists are trying to have a massive hit canceled because of some words that were said that honestly weren't even that bad at the end of the day. Real journalism is about integrity and accountability, getting the story right, and swallowing your pride when required. Hide all you want. The secret is out. You guys suck at your jobs, and IGN should take note. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. If you guys want more information, check out smashjt.com. I will link this article in the description below. If you appreciate what I'm doing, please consider hitting that join button. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, you stay smashing.
Smash JT. Smash JT. Smash JT. Smash JT.